Hello, I'm Heather.
And I'm Ryan.
Welcome to the podcast. It's game night, it's sibling rivalry, it's a walk down memory lane, but most importantly, it's politics free.
Guaranteed.
Welcome to round 8, Your Worst Nightmare. Here's how it works. We have a set of cards. On each one is written a nightmare. We'll pick 4 cards, and Ryan will have to place them in the correct order according to what he thinks my worst nightmare is. Then we'll flip it around, and it'll be my turn. Whoever scores the most points wins the ever-coveted Gloating Rights Trophy until...
we meet again. We play again. Until
I'm just going to roll past that. I can't. Stay tuned for another listener response, by the way.
Yes.
All right. Here's the running score. Ryan, 36. Heather, 1,000,000.
That's not true.
Just 26. I have 26. Ryan has 36. Ryan, are you ready for your first 4 cards?
I am ready.
Here we go. Walking over sidewalk grates.
Mm-hmm.
Being watched. Mm. Crowds. Mm. Being naked in public. One more time, that is walking over sidewalk grates, being watched, crowds, being naked in public.
All right, here is my order.
All right.
Number 4, walking over sidewalk grates.
Correct.
Number 3, crowds.
Correct.
Number 2, being watched.
Correct.
And number 1, being naked in public.
Incorrect. No, I'm kidding. You got it. You nailed it.
All right. Your cards. Number 13, nuclear weapons. Going crazy. Your boss. That's number 13, nuclear weapons. Going crazy. Your boss.
All right. In the number 4 spot, I have put the number 13.
Correct.
Number 3, your boss.
Correct.
Number 2, going crazy.
That is correct.
Number 1, nuclear weapons.
Incorrect.
Oh my gosh, I aced one. I'm so proud of myself. I need you to bomb out, and I need to...
Done, Heather. I am proud of you. This game is a wash so far, Heather.
Wait, is it a wash or is it a woozle? You know what I mean. Isn't a wash something that is...
we're even.
Just a complete disaster or...
No, like it's a wash, like...
It's a tie? It's a... We're flush? All right, now I have to find out.
Let's go to Urban Dictionary. No one will get that joke.
No one will get that joke. I'll explain it. We have another podcast. Shout out to our other podcast, Watching Netflix Without You, where we review Netflix original feature films and documentaries. And we had a whole debate about the Urban Dictionary, which was awesome because it had nothing to do with the movie at all. Go on. What, Ryan?
According to Merriam-Webster.com, definition of it's a wash used to say that something is equal and that one side does not have an advantage.
Read the example just to really rub it in.
You won the first game and I won the second, so it's a wash.
I don't know why. As I started to Google, I was literally thinking to myself, I don't know why I'm bothering to Google it. He's always right about these stupid things. I've had a completely wrong definition for that my whole life. I just learned something.
What did you think it meant?
Oh, wait, no, the Urban Dictionary has my definition.
No, Heather, that doesn't count.
Let's go there.
Nope. Doesn't count. That's not a standard dictionary. Get out of here with that crap. What does Urban Dictionary say? Because I do like Urban Dictionary. So go ahead.
Urban Dictionary. But by the way, our whole argument was I hate Urban Dictionary and Ryan thinks it's great. So
I think it is a good resource for new slang that is not going to be defined anywhere else. Continue.
It says a saying meaning it's a wasted effort or all is lost, which is how I've always understood it. Okay, well, anyways, obviously somebody else, at least one other person who put that entry into Urban Dictionary thinks it means what I think it means. So
And how many thumbs up does that definition have?
64 up, 20 down. I mean, that's not a whole lot.
You know what? If there's enough people that use it that way, it will eventually mean that too.
Then I can also be right?
But as of now, there are 64 people who are using that incorrectly.
All right, are you ready for your next cards?
I'm ready.
They are zombies, beards, vampires, the dark. That is zombies, beards, vampires, the dark.
If I get these first two wrong, Heather, I will have a serious bone to pick with you.
Okay.
Okay? Number 4, vampires.
Correct.
Number 3, zombies.
Correct.
Number 2, swear to God, Heather, beards.
Correct.
And number 1, the dark.
Correct. God, I hate this game so much. God, I hate it.
Hey, you know what? I have faith in you, Heather. I think you're going to ace this next one.
All right, let's see what happens here.
Oh, let me pull up the list or the cards. I'm grabbing the cards. Okay, I grabbed the cards.
Excellent.
So here are your cards. Lice, floods, bridges, needles. That's lice, as in the stuff that scurry around in your scalp. Floods, bridges, and needles.
All right, here's what I got. I got number 4, bridges.
Correct.
Number 3, floods.
Incorrect.
Number 2, needles.
Incorrect.
Number 1, lice.
Incorrect.
Okay. Well, I've got a bone to pick with you then.
Okay.
If you will recall, one of our early episodes that we had on this, we played the game Stuff Happens. And one of the cards said being stranded in a flood. And you were like, no big deal. Doesn't even matter. Who cares if I'm stranded in a flood? People will come rescue me because I'm so awesome. Remember that whole conversation?
Yes.
So I didn't think floods was going to be very high on your list based on your blasé attitude toward it in our earlier
Heather,
conversation.
But I'm going to lose everything in a flood. That's
the rednecks are going to come with beer. What's your problem?
Yeah, and it's going to be great. It'll be a good time, but I will have lost everything. I will lose my cars. I will lose my home. I will lose all the things in my home. It will suck compared to the rest of these.
I agree completely. I didn't think that's where your head was at based on our earlier conversation. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I apologize, Heather, that I misled you yet again.
Thank you. I feel better about that.
Hey, Heather, guess what? This game is not a wash.
It is not a wash. Well, it's a wash for me.
Is it a wash for you?
Let's move on to research inspired by this week's game.
But did you want to know what my order was?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Nah, never mind. You don't sound interested.
No. You know what? I might not want to know, but I'm sure people listening might want to know. So you tell the order.
As you said, bridges 4. You got that one right.
Great.
Needles. Needles don't bother me.
Okay.
Shots, tattoos, all that jazz. Piercings. I put lice at number 2 because I don't ever want to have to experience that. I've never experienced it. And it sounds like it's you know what? I did experience something similar to lice. I experienced...
Was it crabs?
Scabies.
Ooh.
And that sucked so much. And just FY scabies, while it is considered an STD, does not have to be it's not the only way it's transmitted. You can transmit it to your roommates just sharing a room with them, because all my roommates got it because of me, and they were all pissed. All 3 of them. And then my number 1, obviously, was floods.
Okay.
Because there's a lot to lose in floods.
I had wanted to put floods first. I just went with my gut Good thing I'm resetting my gut microbiome because my gut sucks. It's 44-31 right now, so you are up by 13 points. Appropriate, because approximately 10% of Americans do fear the number 13.
I have heard that some buildings don't even have a 13th floor.
I've heard that's true in Vegas.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that would make sense. Okay. I'll buy that.
Now, in particular, there is a fear of Friday the 13th.
Yes.
And get ready for it. There's an actual word for the fear of Friday the 13th. It's Paraskevidea catrotriophobia.
Wow.
Apparently, on Friday the 13th, like in America, whenever we have a Friday the 13th, suddenly there's like an $800 million loss of revenue because people avoid traveling. They avoid getting married. Sometimes they don't even go out of their house or go to work or anything because it's Friday the 13th.
Interesting.
I thought that was kind of interesting. Now,
my father-in-law was born on Friday the 13th.
Interesting. Now, you might be wondering, where does this superstition regarding the number 13 come from? And there are a few theories because I guess we don't really know.
The Salem witch trials.
I did not find one that said that. But there's this thing called the Code of Hammurabi. So it's a Babylonian code of laws from the reign of Hammurabi, which went from 1792 to 1750. This included economic, familial, criminal, civil law, and the penalties for violating those laws. And apparently, there was not a 13th one listed. However, I then also found out that this was probably just a clerical error made by a translator later on, and that on the original stela, which is the stone slab with the inscription on it, the laws were actually never numbered at all.
Oh, okay.
But perhaps from that clerical error, some superstition arose.
Interesting.
Another possible origin is biblical, where Judas, who betrayed Jesus, was the 13th guest at the Last Supper.
Oh, interesting.
And there's also a mathematical possible origin, where mathematicians and scientists point to how often the number 12 appears, like in ancient cultures. And so maybe 13 is one too many, so it's unlucky. But there's a lot of 12s, like we've got the 12 months, and half the day is 12 hours. And so they say if it follows that perfect number so closely, maybe it's bad luck. I don't know. I don't know which of these. It could be any of them. It could be a combination of all of them. But there's also one from Norse origins, which is very similar to the biblical origins, which is that all the turmoil and evil of the world first came about because of Loki, who was the 13th guest at a dinner party in Valhalla, which upset the balance of 12 gods that were already there.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Do you like that one because of the Marvel movies?
Yes.
Big smile. All right, and that's really all I had. I didn't do too big of a deep dive there, but I do have some stories from Reddit, and we're going to talk about needles.
Ooh. Is there a story about falling in a pit of needles?
I did not find a story like that. I at first actually decided to look for horrible boss stories, but they were too whiny and hypercritical, and I was like, I feel like you're not telling me the whole story, so I decided to get needle stories instead.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, this one's from Needle Boys. Appropriately. I had just been on a walk in a forest near my home when I was feeling a small pain in my foot with every step I took. Upon further investigation, I discovered it was a splinter. I decided to take matters into my own hands and carefully remove the splinter using a needle. So, I sat down on my beanbag chair and proceeded to carefully jab at the splinter in an attempt to remove it. All was going well. Then the phone rang. I thought to myself, where is the best place to put this needle so I won't lose it? Quickly eyeing the surrounding area, my logic brought me to conclude that placing the needle point up embedded in the carpet next to my beanbag would be a place I surely would remember. And with that, I rushed off to answer the phone. 30 minutes later, I had completely forgotten about my escapades with the splinter and needle and was walking to my beanbag with a general good feeling after a pleasant conversation with a friend. I decided running and leaping into the beanbag would be an action appropriate to reflect my joyous mood. And so, as I ran towards it, with that final step, I pushed my weight into the ground to leap. I felt a very sharp pain in my foot. I crumbled and fell straight into the beanbag. I looked down at my foot and saw half a needle embedded there. I sat there for a few minutes, contemplating the entire situation before slowly pulling the needle out. Indeed, my logic was not flawed. I had found the needle again, although not quite in the way I had hoped. That
Oh my gosh.
I cringed so hard when I was reading that the first time. It just kept grabbing my foot like, ugh. That's a good one.
I have stepped on a needle. It's not fun.
Have you?
Yes, I don't recall exactly how it happened, but there was a needle in front of our couch and shifted my foot and just jabbed me right in the side of the foot. I also got a porcupine quill stuck in my big toe.
Wow.
Which sucked a lot.
Were you like, look, a porcupine, I'm not wearing shoes, maybe I should kick it? Is that what happened? Or like, how'd that come about?
So one of my friends went to Africa for vacation. This was back in, I think, elementary school or middle school. And so he brought back gifts for all of his classmates, and he got me a porcupine quill that he found. And I was like, oh, this is so dope, thanks. And I took it home, and I put it on the floor with everything else that I owned, because that's where I stored things. And I just happened to be walking across the room and kicked it, and it jabbed and got stuck in my toe.
Did you just pull it right out?
I did.
Was it bleeding everywhere?
It was.
Interesting.
Not as bad as the mirror hitting me in the forearm. Yeah, where I shattered a mirror and had a shard just like fall and stab me right in the crook of the arm. Like it hit like a vein or an artery or something, because it was like squirting blood.
Just squirting out. Oh my God.
Yeah. And
that's fun.
I took it to Dad for him to see, and he was very concerned with the amount of blood that he saw. And then he took me to Shirley. And Shirley was not very concerned with the amount of blood that she saw.
Shirley was the school nurse. Cool. I thought you were actually going to get a doctor trip there, but
nope.
No. Okay. No doctor. Yeah, that wasn't really Dad's style. I've never stepped on a needle, but I did once staple my thumbs together.
Oh, Heather, do you remember the time when we used to work together and I tried to punk you with the stapler and pretend to staple it into my finger and managed to actually staple it into my finger? Do you remember that?
I do not, but that definitely sounds like something you would do.
I was like, I picked up your stapler, it was off your desk, and I was like, ha, Heather, watch this. And I put it up to my thumb, and you're like, Ryan, don't do that. And I went, click, because you know like how like when it separates from the stack, it kind of makes that initial click before it like goes click.
Yes.
Well, I thought I could time it to just the little click to scare you, and I went click, and it went right into my thumb, and I was like,
That's about what I did. I was playing with a stapler, and I didn't know I didn't realize I had my thumb so far up, and I was going, and then suddenly I just went like all the way and stapled my effing thumbs together. It was really painful. And that's how I learned never to play with a stapler. That's not a toy.
Oh my God, Heather. I feel like that's dumber than what I did.
It's definitely dumber than what you did, because at least you were trying to do a prank and it went wrong. I was just being a dumbass.
Oh, that is amazing.
All right, next needle story. I went to give blood once, and the phlebotomist, is that how you say it? Phlebotomist?
I thought it was...
Phlebotomist. It does have a PH at the beginning, so I would go ph.
I've always mispronounced that, and I've always called them phlegmologists.
I like that. I went to give blood once, and the phlegmologist stuck the needle straight down into my very obvious vein. She then pulled the needle up and spooge, blood flow like you'd expect. The next day, I'm showering, and I have a bruise that starts at the crook of my elbow all the way to my wrist, about 3 inches across at the insertion point. It took over a week for it to go away. I got this picture of the phlebotomist just completely messing it up. Like,
that's
blood spurting everywhere, and then the next day, a huge bruise.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy that it bruised that much.
And then this one was shared, and all it said was, fainted in a public restroom at work with a needle in my leg. I have questions.
Yeah.
What's your job? Why is there a needle in your leg? Was it a drug thing gone wrong? Were you on a break? Like, what happened here?
You can always leave a comment on there and be like, info needed, :
Well,
and then ask your questions.
It was posted 7 years ago from a deleted account.
I had to get an IV once. And the person tried 3 times to get it to go and couldn't find the vein, but got it on the 3rd one. It was her first time doing, or one of her first times doing that.
Okay.
Which I didn't know until after the fact. And I was like, well, I guess you got to start somewhere, and I just happen to be the victim.
And it went okay?
Yeah, it went all right. I was a trooper, Heather. I trooped through it.
Good for you. Good for you. Well done.
I'm such a good, humble person.
You are. So humble. Listen, if you get reminded of your stories while listening to this episode, or any episode, send them to us. We're dying to hear them. Email us at thepoliticsfreepodcast@outlook.com. Or you can DM me on Instagram at thepoliticsfreepodcast. Now, we do have a listener response this week. I received an email from Kristen with a last name I didn't know, and I texted my friend Kristen, and I was like, is this you? And she responded, what? No, that must be a random listener who wrote in, and you don't even need to mention their name if you don't want to. So it's definitely not my friend Kristen. It's a totally other Kristen.
It's nobody that we know?
No, I'm being sarcastic. You look so hopeful. It's Kristen. It's my friend Kristen.
Oh.
This is in reference to an episode where we were talking about ways to bathe without water. And you had mentioned a horse bath being one that you do with baby wipes. So she says, my great-grandma called it a horse bath. When you wash just your underarms and crotch butt, which I personally call, Heather, I call that commando shower.
Yes, that's true. The armpits and the crotch and butt. Yes, that is a horse bath. But there are people that do like the full body, but I still call that a horse bath because you're not really cleaning yourself all that well.
With armpits and crotch butt?
Yes, that specifically is a horse bath.
At least you're getting all the spots that stink.
True that.
All right?
Yeah.
She goes on to say, I didn't understand the meaning until I was much older. I can't imagine what people thought when this little kid referred to a horse bath. She was of a long time before wet wipes were available. And I think times were different back then, but I'm pretty sure you couldn't say whore if you were like 5. That would have gone over very poorly in great-grandma's era. I think. I think it might have.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Well, thank you, Kristen. Once again, it's now time for the question of the week. The question is, what food combination do you eat that makes others cringe?
Is it Marmite?
I have 2. Well, that's not really a food combination. You put that on toast like you're supposed to, and some people like it and some people don't.
Marmite, crackers, and avocado.
The only thing that's going to make people cringe about that is the Marmite, because you love it or you hate it.
Or maybe the avocados.
Yeah, but mainly the Marmite. Can we be honest with that? It's not very likable. We love it, but it's rare to meet an American that likes Marmite.
True.
There are two that I've literally had someone say, ew. One is, I like to put ketchup on my rice.
What?
Ketchup on rice.
What's wrong with you?
It's delightful. Soy sauce on eggs. Scrambled
Okay,
eggs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I could dig that.
But I had somebody
Ketchup on your rice?
at school, I loaded some ketchup on my rice and I was guzzling it and someone went, ew, oh my God, you put ketchup on your rice, which by the way is super rude. Don't judge my food I'm eating at the lunch table. But what it made me do was I could never then eat ketchup on rice in front of anybody. So I'd put ketchup on my plate and just make sure it was touching the rice.
Oh, I was
so
going
I
to
could
say.
still have ketchup with the rice.
I was going to say you put the ketchup on your plate and then the rice over the ketchup.
Genius. Where were you when I needed you?
Well, Heather, I went to the same school as you. You could have just asked.
Yeah, I could have, but you weren't. I was mean to you then. Let's move on.
You weren't that mean to me, Heather.
Was I not that mean to you?
I don't think so. I think we had a pretty standard sibling. I mean, okay, the early stages. When we first moved to the U.S., I think that there was a few years where we did not get along very well.
Mm-hmm.
But standard sibling rivalry sort of stuff, like nothing.
Sure.
But I think once I got to about 12, I think we started getting along much better.
I think we did. I think we bonded over a prank we played on Mom and Dad. Do you remember that?
What prank was that? No.
I walked into the kitchen and you were there mixing something red in a cup and I said, "What's that?" And you're like, "Fake blood." I was like, "Cool. Let me see." I was like, "Oh my God, I have a great idea. I'm going to make it look like you have a wound on your head and you're going to go get in bed and moan. And Mom and Dad are going to come home and I managed to make it look really realistic. I put this like gash on your forehead and then we put you to bed and you were like, "Oh." I was like, Mom and Dad happened to come home. I was like, "Mom, Dad, quick." I guess we were expecting them home pretty soon. Ryan hurt his head. I take them into your room and you busted up laughing immediately. I was like, "Ryan," and they both looked at it. They're like, "That looks real." I was like, "I know. I could have been a makeup artist for movies."
Amazing.
All right, folks. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here every week. Do us a favor, share the podcast. We'd really appreciate it if you would. And last but not least, if you would like to play the game we played in this episode, Your Worst Nightmare, you can go to PressmanToy.com and search Your Worst Nightmare, or go to the link in the description in the show notes of this episode, and it'll take you straight to the product on their website. They are not a sponsor, sadly. And that's
One
all
day.
we've got. One day, maybe one day. Until
Happy hunting.
we play again. Goodbye.
Goodbye.